But I will start out with presenting the site, which is called Kongehøj, and it's actually made up of two sites. It lies in the southern part of Denmark. It's called Kongehøj I and II. And Kongehøj I was a late Neolithic, early Bronze Age burial mound, which I will not go into at all. And the second one was a lot of longhouses dating from the late single grave culture until the beginning of the pre-Roman Iron Age. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Danish chronology, that is from the period 2500 until 500 BC. So we actually have not a continuous settlement on the site, but a recurring settlement at the site during the 2,000 years. On this site, we found quite a lot of houses from the early Bronze Age, which is from 1700 until 1000 BC. And as you can see up on top, those are some of the houses, and of course they are not all contemporary, but I will not go into that. That will be for another talk perhaps, and that will presumably be the archaeologists doing that. I will concentrate on the construction K1, which is the longhouse you see at the bottom. This is also from the early Bronze Age, period 2, so that's from 1500 to 1300 BC. It's a rather large house. It is 40 meters long and 9 meters wide. That means that it has 360 square meters on the roof. And just to give you a comparison, that is actually more than 2 times a normal Danish single-family house from the 80s or 70s, from the 70s or 80s. So it's a rather large house. As you can see on the photo to the right, they had some extremely large posts, and you can also see the house is extremely large because you can see the tiny people inside the house. And as with Maria's house, the interpretation was that perhaps they could actually have had two floors because the postholes were exaggerated big. They were just not the normal size in a Danish house. The archaeologists were very good in the field. They were actually sampling all the features, all the postholes, from this and also from many other houses at the site. And if possible, they would actually separate the fill from the posthole and the postmark, which would help with the interpretation later on. And this one I will skip very quickly because you have already seen that today. So, this is the distribution of slag, both from organic material and from slag, from sand or other inorganic materials. And the archaeological interpretation was that the east side of the house was burned off. For you, it's the right side, of course. And there was no sign of fire in the west part of the house. I was a bit skeptical about that because how do you manage to burn one part of the house and not the other part? But it can happen, of course, no problem with that. But the western part also seems to have been demolished when you look at the postholes or the postmarks. It looks as though they have been sort of weakening the post and then dragging them up from it. But when you look at the distribution of the slag that will indicate fire, there can't be any doubt that the entire house actually burned down because it's a fairly even distribution all over the house. And that was one of the houses that actually started the discussion at the department of these intentional or unintentionally burned down houses, because we were getting more and more houses where we have so much burned material and they can't all have been accidents, and especially not this house, since it looks as though it has been demolished already before it burned down. So the interpretation is here that part of the house has been demolished because perhaps they could reuse some of the posts, or at least firewood for the new house or something like that. And then afterwards they sort of cleaned the place by burning down the remainder of the house. And then you could either build a new house there, or you can use it as a field. So that was a way of sort of helping the archaeologists to understand the house. Then, because they had separated the fill from the post holes and the post marks, we were actually able to look at the distribution of the archaeobotanical material in the different layers, sort of. The house on the bottom, sort of speaking, is from the post holes, and the one on top is the post marks. Theoretically, of course, the house on the bottom should be completely empty of macrofossils if the macrofossils belongs to the house. But since we have a very clear distribution within the house, I think that the macrofossils in the post holes could be due to animals, activities, or perhaps because the borders between the post holes and the post marks were not that clear, or it could have been, I don't know, a rainy day and you were just putting earth into a bag, and there might have been some problems there. So I'm pretty sure that the macrofossils actually belongs to the house. And what we have inside the house, based on the archaeobotanical material, is that we have an interesting distribution where it looks as though we have two storages of naked barley and one storage of wheat. Some of the storage is in the eastern part, where there was also found cornerstones during the excavation. So that interpretation of that room will be that cereal storage and processing was happening in this house. And there's also a storage, presumably in the middle room of the house. If I can make this work, yeah. And then, of course, the obvious question would be, but why is this not a storage of wheat? And the next slide will actually show you that. Because when looking closer at the wheat found in the house, it turns out that most of the wheat was actually glume bases. That means threshing waste from the wheat. And that is also distributed to much of the house. And these glume bases was often mixed with quite a lot of wheat seeds, and therefore the interpretation was that it could have been floor bedding for some of the house to give a drier climate. There's also been some experiments done on pit houses from the Viking Age that show that if you have straw lying in the pit house, there will be more light within the house. So that could also be a possibility why you have straw or threshing waste lying in a house. Of course, there was also the possibility that it could. The distribution might also give a clue to where we had some entrances, because there are some theories about that. Clusters of material could perhaps be in the entrance areas, and the entrance areas were not visible in the archaeological material. So that could be an interpretation. Another interpretation could, of course, be that the middle room was not an entrance area, but a stable. So we, of course, also looked at the wheat seeds. And this is the composition of the different wheat seeds. The most common ones, of course, I haven't brought in all of them because that would have been completely confusing. But for those of you who are familiar with the macrofossils, then you can see that the wheat seeds mainly represent agricultural wheat. So it looks as though they have been brought in together with the cereal harvest and is part of the threshing waste together with the glume bases. So we have no indication of a stable in this house. Okay. So, based on the archaeological interpretation and distribution of the macrofossils and slags, we're pretty sure that the entire house has burned down. We have apparently floor bedding of Emma waste products, at least at the middle room and perhaps also the western part of the house, which are usually the part that are interpreted as the living room, sort of speaking, or where people were living. We have storages in the middle room and storage and cleaning cereal processing going on in the eastern room. And we could perhaps also show traces of where the entrances in the house have been. One of the things that might have been interesting to work with in this house, besides macrofossils and the archaeological things, could have been the things I can never pronounce, but where you can see if the entire house had burned down by looking at the magnetic stability. Yes, sorry. But unfortunately, we couldn't do that because we didn't have material to work with. And it's not a very common research method in Denmark either. But that was as far as I got with the, well, I did get some more points out, but this was just to show you the great picture, an overview of what the archaeological interpretations together with the macrofossil samples could bring to the house. And then we go on to my slip-up. Because there was a PhD project going on about searching for long-term trends in Western Denmark for prehistoric manuring practice. And that was a PhD project done by Marie Kanstrup. And what she was interested in was to see if manuring could be seen in carbonized cereals. So she did some experiments with modern cereals, some which had been manured and some which hadn't, out in the field. And then she would also look at prehistoric material to see whether or not she could see development in the manuring practice in Danish prehistory. And I can't really go into details about it because I'm not that well into it. But what they basically do is that there's nitrogen, of course, in manure, whether it's from a cow or other animals or ash, etc. And that will, of course, the manure will go into the ground, and from the ground it will go into the cereal plants, and of course also into the grain. And then the delta N15 value in the grain can be measured, and in short, an increase in this delta N15 value would mean that the bigger the increase, the higher level of manuring would have been going on. There are, of course, some buts in that theory, or it's not buts, but you can't really compare different crops because each crops have their own values, and so you can't compare within species, and that actually gave some problems, which I'll come back to. Our lab was very much involved in providing the samples. We had a lot of material at our lab, but we also had a good cooperation with the National Museum in Copenhagen, which sent us some samples where we took out the required samples. And here you can see the distribution. Marie was working with the area of Jutland and Fyn, whereas the material from Zealand was not involved, mainly due to not that many finds, and also you have to sort of draw the line somewhere. But as you perhaps can see from this one, she had some problems with the statistics due to the number of samples, because when they originally came to our lab, they had a big plan on how to make this valid statistically. So they wanted, 50, 100 samples from each of the time periods, and each of the samples should be at least 10, 20 grains. And then sort of reality hit them, and you can see how many sites we were actually able to provide for them. So with the and they also wanted the period to go from the beginning of the agriculture until the Viking Age, sort of to give all of the developments in manuring in Denmark. And we just had to say to them, yes, well, we can't do that, because they don't grow the same crops in the Viking Age as they did in the Kongehøj II. So they had to sort of limit it down and also sort of do what the rest of us do, work with the material that's actually available. And so this was how much we could actually find for them. So of course some of Marie's conclusion was that she needs more samples and more data. And I have of course also promised her to say that she's still interested in more work, and the lab at Aarhus University is still doing isotopic analysis if someone are interested in working with them. Okay, but back to this. Back to my slip up. In theory, we should provide one sample that is 10 grains per construction per site. And we sampled then a lot of different sites, and then some time passed, and we went back to Kongehøj and had to find something for her there. And I had forgotten that she only wanted one sample per construction, so we gave her more per construction, and that was of course from Kongehøj, because that was a really, really nice house with a lot of things. So she had, I can't remember, 8 samples from this house, and as you can see, they correspond with my with the storage areas of the naked barley. But back to the nitrogen manuring project, it turned out that these 2 storage clearly turns out to be from different crops that has been stored in different places, because the delta and 15 values within the different storage are completely different. One has more manure than the other, and the eye-opener, of course, for the isotopic people was that from all of the other sites they only had one sample from each house. So in that way, they couldn't actually say, well, but do we then have the well-manured or the bad-manured crop for the house? So I think what Marie would like to work on further is actually to look at more samples from different houses, within houses, because it seemed as though she had a trend from more manuring due time, but could that of course be due to coincidences like this house? Because you would have a lot of manure if you're taking from one storage, and not very much manure if you're taking from the other one. So I think the lesson here is be careful with just one sample. And that was it. Thank you.